Jai Hind, dear children. Welcome to today's biology class. Last class we have discussed about reproduction and its importance, DNA copying during reproduction, and the different two types of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual reproduction. Today in this video we can study about the asexual reproduction in detail. Now, what is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is the method of reproduction in which the production of new organisms from a single parent without the involvement of sex cells or gametes. The gametes are not produced in this method of reproduction. This is the simplest method of reproduction. There are different methods by which organisms reproduce asexually. Binary fission, multiple fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation, vegetative propagation in plants, etc. are some of the methods by which organisms reproduce asexually. Now we can learn about these different methods of asexual reproduction in detail in this video. So watch the video carefully.
First, we can discuss about the asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms. Most of the unicellular organisms reproduce by three methods. They are binary fission, multiple fission, and budding. Now, what is fission? Fission refers to the division or splitting of parent cell into two or more parts. This is the simplest method of reproduction and is seen in single-celled organisms such as bacteria, amoeba, paramecium, euglena, leishmania, etc. There are two types of fission, binary fission and multiple fission. In binary fission, the parent organism splits or divides into two organisms. Example, unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium, bacteria, leishmania, etc. You have already studied in the lower classes about the binary fission in amoeba. When an amoeba reaches its maximum size of growth, it becomes spherical in shape. And first, the nucleus lengthens and divides into two parts, followed by the division of cytoplasm into two, such that one part of cytoplasm surrounds each nucleus. Thus, amoeba divides into two similar amoeba by binary fission. Here, you can observe the real video of an amoeba undergoing binary fission under a microscope. In amoeba, the splitting of two cells can take place in any plane because it does not have a definite shape or size. In bacteria also, the binary fission can take place like this. But in some other unicellular organisms like paramecium, euglena, leishmania, etc. are having a more body organization, and in such organisms fission occurs in a definite or a particular plane. In paramecium, binary fission takes place horizontally. Euglena is another unicellular organism in which binary fission takes place longitudinally, as it is having a flagella at one end. Leishmania is another unicellular organism which comes under the group Protozoa. It is a parasite which caused the disease Kala-Azar. It has some more developed body organization than amoeba, as it is having a whip-like flagellum at its one end. So, while splitting, it has to make a copy of the flagellum also. So, the splitting of parent cell should take place in a definite plane, that is longitudinally, with respect to the flagellum at its one end. Next is multiple fission. Multiple fission in unicellular organisms takes place during unfavorable condition. In this type of fission, parent organism splits to form many new organisms at the same time. For example, Plasmodium vivax. It is a unicellular organism which causes the disease malaria. During unfavorable condition, that is, if food, moisture, proper temperature are not available, that time a cyst or a protective wall is formed around the cell. Inside the cyst, the nucleus splits several times to form many smaller nuclei called daughter nuclei. Then little bits of cytoplasm collects around each nucleus and thin membrane are formed around this bit of nucleus and cytoplasm. In this way, many new daughter cells are formed. When favorable condition arrives, the cyst breaks up and the daughter cells are released, each forming a new organism. Next is budding. Bud means small outgrowths. Budding is defined as the production of new individual from an outgrowth of the parent individual. In budding, a small part of the body of the parent organism grows out as a bud, which then detaches and becomes a new organism. Example, hydra, yeast, etc. Yeast is a unicellular organism which reproduces by budding. Yeast cells has a nucleus and the cytoplasm. At the time of reproduction, an outgrowth protrudes out from the yeast cell and it is called as bud. Then the nucleus of the parent cell divides into two and one nucleus moves into the bud, and then this bud detaches from the parent cell and grows into a new yeast cell. In yeast cell, budding takes place very fast, and sometimes all these buds remain attached to the parent cell, forming a chain of yeast cells. After some time, all the buds separate from one another and forms individual yeast cell. Now you can see a real video of budding in yeast. Hydra. Hydra is one of the simplest multicellular freshwater organism, about 1 cm long. It has a tubular body and an oral mouth which is surrounded by tentacles at one end. In Hydra, first a cell undergoes repeated division and forms a group of cell and forms an outgrowth on the side of its body. This is called bud. This bud then grows gradually to form a small hydra by developing a mouth and tentacles. Finally, new hydra detaches itself from the parent body and lives as a separate organism. Next is fragmentation. Some multicellular organisms which are having simple body organizations reproduce by breaking their body into small pieces called fragments. Each fragments grow into new individuals, and this mode of reproduction is called as fragmentation. This takes place in certain filamentous algae like Spirogyra and certain fungi. Spirogyra is a multicellular filamentous algae. These filaments break down into small fragments and each fragments develop into new Spirogyra. Another method of asexual reproduction is regeneration. Regeneration is the ability of an organism to regenerate its lost part of the body which have been removed by injury or splitting of the body into 2 or 3 parts. Regeneration is common in lower plants like algae, fungi, etc. and certain animals like hydra, planaria, sponges, etc. Here we can discuss the regeneration in planaria. If planaria splits into its body into 3 parts as head, middle part and tail, then from the middle part that develops head and tail and regenerates into a new planaria. Like that, the other 2 parts, that is the head and tail part, also regenerates and forms 3 new planaria. Now you can observe the regeneration of a real planaria. Here you can see a planaria is cut into 2 parts, the head part and the tail part. And now you can see the 2 parts regenerates into 2 new planaria. Spore formation is another method of asexual reproduction. In this method, parent plant produces hundreds of microscopic reproductive units called spores. Most of the fungi, bacteria and some non-flowering plants such as ferns and mosses reproduce by this method of spore formation. Spore is a single or several celled reproductive structure that detaches from the parent and give rise into a new individual. Here we can discuss about the reproduction of rhizopus, or commonly we call it as bread mold, by spore formation. If we keep a slice of bread open in the moisture, after 2 or 3 days we can see the appearance of a grape patches. That indicates the growth of fungus called rhizopus. The plant body of rhizopus is multicellular hyphae. From this hyphae, a single cell develops into a stalk and there develops the sporangium. The nucleus of the developing sporangium divides several times and develops into spores. When the spores mature, the sporangial wall breaks and release spores. These spores, when fall on a substratum, develops into a new hyphae. Like this, the mosses also produce spores inside the capsule from its parent body. And ferns, the ferns also produce spores under the leaves. In that, when the spores get matured, it is released from the sporangium and fall on the land and develop into a new plant.
So children, in this video, we have discussed about different methods of asexual reproduction with the help of examples. Binary fission in amoeba, multiple fission in Plasmodium vivax, budding in yeast and hydra, fragmentation in Spirogyra, regeneration in Planaria, and spore formation in rhizomes. I hope you all understood the contents that we have discussed today. Now read the textbook thoroughly and prepare the notes and send the notes before the next class. Okay, thank you.